it's really turned, but I think the key to pivoting is, you've got to be realistic. We get stuck we know what we like, but you got to be realistic of what others like and what's going on in the world too.
Welcome to the Side Hustle Lounge. If you're looking for flexible ways to earn income, grow your mindset, and live the lifestyle you've always dreamed of, you are in the right place. So lower the lights, grab your favorite beverage, and join your host, founder of NotaryCoach.com and Amazon best-selling author of Sign and Thrive, How to Make Six Figures as a Mobile Notary and Loan Signing Agent, Bill Soroka.
All right. Good afternoon. Cheers. And welcome to my next guest, who's a longtime friend, also a fellow serial entrepreneur and fellow lover of all things shiny, Jen Enck. Jen, thank you so much for joining me here in the Side Hustle Lounge.
Thank you, Bill. It's awesome to talk with you. We don't catch up often. It's nice to get back into it with you.
It really is. And I'm so excited to actually record that conversation because you and I have not caught up in quite some time. So I'm real excited to hear what you have going on. You and I think we're cut from the same cloth for sure. We always have multiple irons in the fire and our fingers in something. And we're going to get that chance to talk about that a little bit. Great. To our listeners, today we're talking about talking to Jen about balancing multiple side hustles and maintaining a full-time job. And what's interesting about Jen, among so many other things, is that she has found a way to thrive in the crafting and art arena as well in her side hustles. So we're going to get a chance to talk about that too. So stay tuned. Jen, what I want to start out with, though, so we can catch up, I want to ask you a question that I know some of my friends are scared to ask me, and I'm sure you are surrounded by friends that are afraid to ask.
Uh-oh.
What are you up to now? What's new?
Oh, boy. Well, it depends on the day, I would say. I work full time still, and I feel like that's my security blanket. So at some point, the baby's got to get rid of the security blanket. But in the meantime, I just keep building my side hustles. I have two main ones right now and working on doing a online course to help people start theirs as well. So,
Love that.
Yeah.
So I knew we were going to have multiple answers there, of course, but I want to go back because you called it a safety blanket, and I love that. And most toddlers lose their safety blanket somewhere between 2 and 5 years old. How long have you been hanging on to yours?
Well, I just had my birthday, and I won't say how old I am.
How long have you been working that job or in that industry?
I work in the automotive industry, and I've been working in it since I was 15 years old. So I will say
a couple years.
Yeah. So I'll spill the tea, and it's 35 years in the automotive industry. But I love it. I really enjoy it. It's not a hardship for me. I love the industry. I like my job, so it's not that I ever wanted to leave it because I'm miserable, and I get paid well, and I think I like the normalcy kind of part of it, but sure. I do appreciate my paycheck, so I'm naturally, have you ever taken those personality assessments, so I'm naturally a non-conform. I don't.
Nonconformist?
Yes. But I conform for a paycheck. So,
interesting.
Yeah. And I've always been that way. So that's kind of why I'm a side hustler, because my natural being is more on the artsy side, and I work as an accountant. So, that right brain, left brain thing are fighting against each other. So I feel like the only way I can really be happy is to be able to work both sides. So I have to use my creative side, and that's why I'm in the arts and crafts area.
I love this.
Yeah.
Number one, I think what I love is your perspective, because I think there's so much pressure sometimes, and maybe it's from the side hustle community or from the art community, right? To quit your job and live your passion. But
Yeah.
sometimes you can actually love your job and
Mm-hmm.
love being there as part of that. And it sounds like that's kind of the not even a battle that you fight, but you just enjoy being there and want to be
Yeah.
there.
I mean, like any job, you have your days where you're like, why am I doing this? But, I'm very content at this very moment in the job that I have right now. I've got it all dialed in to where I feel like it's the right amount of hours. I'm not pushing myself to an extreme where I have been that person as well, where I work 80 hours a week, uh, 60 in my job and then another 20, 30 in my side hustles.
Right. I remember that.
Yeah, it's really painful. So, right now I'm working a good, normal 40 hours. I come home. And so I think the key is to schedule your life, right? So, I have my daytime, and then when I leave work, I come home, make dinner. And then at night, I have it in my mind, like by 8 o'clock, the latest, I will start working on my stuff till 11 at least, and then weekends I schedule out when I'm going to work on my stuff, so I think that kind of gives me the give and take that I need to make sure that I stay in a level-headed, happy place, where
Yeah, right.
I get
A
really
little bit of structure.
resentful. Yeah, I get really resentful if it's too much of the accounting space. It doesn't make me happy then, because I feel like, oh, I want to be creative. I need to make something. Hurry. I need to buy some craft supplies, hurry. It's like, it's like an IV, right? So I infuse
I've seen some of your posts on Instagram. I'm like, I can totally relate to that. A Michael's or a craft store is heaven. Yeah.
Right. So, but for me, it's definitely the scheduling has changed my life for sure.
That's a good point. So let's dive even deeper. So we know that you have a full-time job. You're in the accounting arena in the automotive industry,
Mm-hmm.
and you mentioned that you have two other side hustles right now. So tell us about those.
Okay, so one is called Drinks and Crafts, and that is a little hustle I started basically to, I guess, chill out. I was working too hard on my automotive side, and at that time, I took a huge pay cut in my job. Well, pretty much earth-shattering at that time. But so, about 11 years ago, I started Drinks and Crafts. I was making coasters, and I would sell them at art shows around Arizona. And it just started because a friend of mine ran an art show, and she's like, "Why don't you bring your stuff?" I was like, "Okay." She gave me just bring a small table. She gave me this itty bitty spot in between other artists, and it was like, okay. And I sold out, and I was like, wow, like I can sell this stuff. Like, to me, it was just something to do. I just made a couple things, and the coasters were fun and silly. And I was like, oh, well, then when I took a pay cut, and it was like, I really need some additional income. I don't want to leave my job. I was hoping that was a temporary thing, and I was happy. Well, not extremely happy with my job, but, I liked my job and I didn't want to change. So I started doing more art shows, and that became a regular occurrence where I started doing at least 2 a week. And at the time for my job, I traveled all around the country auditing car dealerships, which is a difficult job. Yeah. And especially being on the road, being a road warrior is a hard life. But I would, try to fit in as many art shows as I could if I was in town, just to supplement my income. And it was shocking to me how much money I could make. So I kept with it. And then it just became part of my life because I really enjoyed the people. I enjoyed the social aspect of it. I love my fellow artisans. It's so neat to be around creatives, It's such a different world, coming from an accounting side. Bean counters are not the most fun people sometimes. They're
Right.
very, very black and white, and or should I say black and red,
Right.
So, it's just a different way of thinking, the analytical thinking where the creative, everything is shiny and new and fun. And I don't know, just a whole different perspective. So I really love those people. Those are my people, so I feel like that's what I was missing. So to join that community and it's such a family-like community here in Arizona for in the artists in the community. It was like coming home, So it was really good for me. And then it gave me the income I needed, and it was a shocking amount of income for me. Did not expect. And so it really helped me settle myself,
Right.
more
Yeah. It
grounded.
seems like it kind of it tapped into that creative need, and that's finding your tribe of people where you fit in. And then it also helps solve some really practical real world challenges with the income.
Exactly.
And I think that's so inspiring because you hear so much about starving artists and people not making it. And you're you're a shining example of making it work, but also it sounds like you found a community of others that are thriving as well.
Yeah, it's very, I think the part of it that, I guess we get to a point where, you try to keep up with the Joneses, right? You want all the things. And I get caught up in that a lot, and where I'm trying to live the more minimalist life now. And I've kind of learned that from that community where they're like, this is all I need. I don't need everything, Right. And so seeing that they can make it work and thrive in their own environment and, take each day as it comes is really inspiring to me, because I feel like I come from a different place in that respect. I'm surrounded by people that are trying to make as much money as they can in my business, so yeah. And so that kind of changed my mindset a little bit, but and at the time art shows were in abundance. You could do a show every day somewhere, as long as you know where to go, which is sadly now in this world, this crazy world we live in, is not the case. So I have seen them struggling a little bit more to make income, but they're still holding on.
Yeah, I would imagine those live events have taken or caused a huge hit to that community. Have you found, well, and I hate using this word because we heard it so much in 2020, but have you seen a successful pivot?
Yeah. Well, for myself, I had to pivot tremendously. I sadly, because my drinks and crafts business is a live event business. People always ask me, do you sell these online? And I used to, but it was really hard to keep up. I like to say they're limited edition. It's hard to make the same ones over and over. So, and it was really hard to keep up with the website. So I was like, these are exclusive to live events. And if you want them, come see me or text me, call me, email me. I'll see if I have them, but I can't guarantee.
Well played. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but because of that, I also decided to launch a second business, which I call Dandy Like Candy, which is basically an offshoot of Drinks and Crafts, because Drinks and Crafts was art shows, but I also turned it into a home craft business. So I would do that kind of in the off season. Like in Arizona, art shows are October through March, April, because in the summer it's too dang hot, so we don't do art shows in Phoenix area. We go up north and whatnot. Well, I figured out going up north, this wasn't my thing. It's a lot more expense. You got to take multiple days to do bigger shows, and I just didn't love it, So I started Dandy Like Candy, which I make little cute, funny zipper bags, which goes along with my whole motif. I've always made tote bags and coasters and just silly, sassy stuff. That's my personality. So making the zipper bags, I said, no, I'm going to try and sell these online. I really want to push this into a wholesale business and have stores and boutiques sell them for me. I'm not looking to retail and do that, but I figured in my off season that could supplement my income that I lose from not doing shows. And so that I started a couple of years ago, which has been amazing. Actually, I've grown it ridiculously fast. So now my bags are in I just surpassed 200 stores around in the country and Canada, and I just got my first store in the UK. Crazy.
Jen, that's huge.
Yeah. So now I'm international, baby. Like, how did that happen? So, but that I had to pivot because, sassy sayings and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, all these stores were closing their doors. They're not essential businesses, things like that. And so what I did was a lot of those stores went online, and I allowed them to sell my products online, where a lot of other makers did not want that. They wanted their own online sales, which that's not my focus. I wanted wholesale. So then I created my quarantine collection, which is all sassy designs based off of, this whole COVID and wearing a mask. And so I just started presenting them as a place to hold your mask, so you can put your mask in them and put them in your purse and in your bags, whatever, your briefcase. And so that really took off with the boutiques. And that's my bestseller used to be a bag that says shit I need. And it's still up there. But now my bestsellers are ones that say, survival kit, and they have a mask on them and things like that. So it's really turned. But I think the key to pivoting is, you've got to be realistic. We get stuck in, we know what we like, but you got to be realistic on what others like and what's going on in the world too. So
yeah, that is such a good point. If you're going to sell products, then you gotta sell what people want.
Yeah,
shit people want.
Exactly. Shit they need.
I just love that. It's almost like you're number one. You were positioned well because you had started that wholesale part just before the pandemic hit. And then when the pandemic hits, you're able to pivot like that, open-minded.
Yeah, my business grew. Everyone was hurting in 2020. My business grew over 300%. So it was, a big surprise. Of course, drinks and crafts tanked because I couldn't do art shows. So I felt like that's okay. That was my whole intention, was to have this other side, and
exactly.
It worked out.
It definitely got a boost. You're all international now. And then during the pandemic, did you find that you created more? So does Drinks and Craft have an inventory stocked up, ready to go when when events come back?
Sadly, no. In Arizona, the automotive industry was considered essential. So we never closed. I've never missed a day of work. So I still went to work every day, and it was just weird to just come home after work, not go anywhere. So you would think I would have been a little bit more creative, but I think really because my Dandy Like Candy took off, all I do is make bags after work. I'm not making the coasters. As a matter of fact, this weekend I have a show tomorrow, and I'm making coasters today. And because I have really hardly any inventory, and it's really crazy.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit too, because I want to kind of see what the lifestyle looks like. Mm-hmm. You work full time. You're passionate about what you do with your job, but then you also make these crafts. So what's life look like? That schedule that you mentioned. When do you create? When do you market? When do you build relationships and all that good stuff?
Okay, so I have a basically a 9-to-5 job. Monday through Friday. I don't work weekends for that job. So I come home, make dinner, and then I start working, and it really depends on the orders as they come in, but I do try to schedule them where I used to be. That's another thing that saved me. I used to really pride myself in getting them out right away, but that would really put me in a bad situation some days where I'm just up all night trying to work. So I really had to dial it down, be like, okay, Jennifer, let's be realistic. Like, okay, you don't have to ship it out in 2 days. Let's move your shipping. So I moved it. I will send your stuff within 4 to 7 days. They will be sent out. So then I look at my calendar and I say, I make products on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I ship on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays. So however that order falls, that's where I schedule when I'm going to make it and when I'm going to ship it, because all of my stuff is made to order. And it's intentional only because I don't want to waste product. So I do have bags, and then I make the sayings on them as they're ordered, because, especially like last year showed us, my best sellers are no longer my best sellers. So I don't want to have an abundance of that one and it's not selling, then I have to buy more inventory to create. And so, I want to use what I have. I want to be realistic and be conscious of my expenses and not knowing what's going to happen in the world, So that's been very interesting, but really helpful to actually schedule out my items. And then, like I said, I usually start working from 7 or 8 o'clock at night, no longer than 8. I start, and then I work till 11, and 11 is my cutoff. So, and then it's like, okay, get ready for bed, do whatever, meditate, read a book, do something, and then get some sleep and start again. So some days, if I just don't feel like doing that, I give myself some grace. I just say I had a rough day, I'm tired, whatever it may be. Whatever hours I didn't put in during the week, I tell myself I'm going to put them in on Saturday or Sunday. And so that's how I schedule. So if I have to do a full 8-hour day on Saturday, then that's what I'm going to do, instead of doing, 3 hours a night or something.
Yeah, that takes commitment for sure.
Yeah.
How important, I love that you schedule out that way. I love that you took control of when you're shipping things out. I think a lot of people in these handmade products, they almost fall victim to their own policies, and they guarantee 24 to 48 hour, and that puts almost an unnecessary strain. Sure, there are people who need their product that fast, but maybe that's not the best. That's not your client.
Yeah.
So you attract clients that can give you a little bit of that window of grace, I suppose. So I love that. How important is it to you to actually hand make them versus commercialization of them?
Well, it's funny you say that. I have done research, and initially when I started doing the wholesale, I was going to have someone make items for me. I was going to do a print on demand company. I send them the orders and they fill them, but I just wasn't in love with the products that they were offering at the time. And in order for them to use my particular bags, I would have to supply them with a huge amount, which I didn't understand why. Like, if I know what's coming, why supply you with a ridiculous amount? You know what I mean? I guess
Right.
I know when to reorder, like I keep track, and, I order, thousands at a time of the supplies. So I don't know. I think then, because of, the changing in the world and whatnot, it just kind of gives me, I really enjoy making things, and that's my stress reliever. So do I want to give up doing that? So I feel like once it gets too big, I have had an intern, then before COVID, I had to lose my intern, I think, I'll be getting back to that soon enough. I think it's easy enough to have help and just hire I would really rather just have my own employees eventually. In my little brain, I want my own manufacturing plant and hundreds of employees. So,
That's part of the big dream.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you made such an excellent point, is that making stuff is a stress reliever. Yeah. Part of the creative process is why you're here. This is not about just creating products to sell.
Correct.
This is almost a therapeutic process for you. And I think that's really important for us to keep in perspective.
Yeah, it is. I feel like, I mentioned earlier, I feel like it changed my life. I was in a really stressful situation. And when I make things, it makes me, my natural, because that's my natural personality, right? So I actually went to school for art. Don't ask me how I'm an accountant. I went to school. I went to college for art. So not doing that was very strange, and I guess we were kind of, like you mentioned earlier, the starving artist thing. Maybe that was a fear of mine, that I wouldn't make money. But I do understand too, it's really hard to bare your soul and show your work as an artist. So that's why I started with stuff that was not personal to me. I make coasters, they're silly sayings or whatever. It's not personal, but I am that person that I can paint, I can draw, I can do, like, I have paintings hanging in my house and people are like, oh, well, who did that? I'm like, I did. They're like, what? Like, you did that? I'm like, yeah, I'm actually an artist. I don't sell my work that way. But so I can understand the scariness of it because that's very, I don't know, you have to really be secure in the rejection of that,
Yes. Jen, I love that you even brought that up, and that's going to be a topic on this very podcast. It's almost it's terrifying. It can be terrifying to quote unquote publish your work to the world. There's also, as I learned, because I'm on the writing side of things. I can't paint, I can't draw. It's terrible. But on the writing side, it's a passion of mine. And when I released my first book, I went through the best way I can describe it is, and this is a terrible analogy because I can't like literally feel this, but it was like postpartum depression and empty nester syndrome, all in the same field. Because I had published, it took a life of its own. I was it's the most vulnerable I've ever felt in my entire life.
Right.
And that does exist for all artists. And I think that they're almost this conflict going through their brain. They want to build a lifestyle doing what they love, but they also don't want to be hurt.
Yeah, and in a combination with that is that imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
That little sucker, it comes up, and I have
all the time.
Yeah. And I was just talking about this with my cousin yesterday, who is an artist himself, but he's like me. He works full time. He does his art a little bit here on the side at night. He doesn't really sell it, and I've pushed him for years to sell. And then when he finally did our show, he sold, more paintings than anyone. It's like, see,
wow.
It's you got to do it. And that imposter syndrome combined with everything else, I feel like, you have multiple syndromes going on and you have to overcome that, right?
Yep.
Or else
Totally.
where you going, you got to do what feels good to you and don't worry about anything else. What's the saying? Like, what someone else thinks of you is none of your business. Like that's what you got to remember. Just do what feels good to you.
Do what feels good to you. Feel the fear, do it anyway. And my favorite quote was from a local mentor here in Phoenix, actually, who said, everything you've ever wanted is on the other side of fear. And that I have proven that to myself time and time again, but I still struggle with the imposter syndrome and putting yourself out there too far. That's such a gift when you can get through it. So I love that you found little bridges to get there, and I can't wait to see where you go with this.
Yeah, it's funny because I just was telling myself, Jennifer, stop playing small. You're playing small. Like, just keep going, because I know what I can do. I know what I've accomplished, what I can accomplish, but I feel like I hold myself back for some reason, and I'm not quite sure what the reason is. I've done a lot of soul searching on the topic, and then it's like, then I just kind of push through and get to the next level. And, you just kind of keep going. Did you ever read the book, The Big Leap?
No, I haven't read that yet.
Okay. Write that down. I can't remember the name of them. Gary something. It's amazing. And that is literally my life. That's when you play small, and you got to push past those boundaries. When you think you can't get any further, that's when you're right there. You just got to go. Just keep going.
Got to keep going. And I think that's one of the things I'm so attracted to with you is you always do push through. You rarely quit. Sure, you might shift directions, but you are always in forward motion. And I think that's the key. A lot of people turn around.
Yeah, I'm tenacious as they come, whether it be good or bad.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, like you said, I do shift gears. I'm not afraid. Like, I'm not afraid of failure where other people are afraid of failure. I'm not. I think if you try something and you don't like it, then you don't like it. You do something else. If it didn't work out, you do something else. And that's one of the things I think a true entrepreneur is always going to have a million ideas. I don't know about you. I have a notebook with millions of things that I want to do in my lifetime, right? And as a matter of fact, years ago, I remember watching Shark Tank, right? And there was a guy on there, and he was kind of, I'll be honest, a douchebag. And I could see nobody really wanted to work with this man, but they really liked his product. And so he was actually offered to sell to them. And it was like, how about if we just, pay you this many millions of dollars for this and just buy it outright from you? And he refused it. And I was like, are you nuts? Like, if you obviously are a one-trick pony, then, and you're not a true entrepreneur, because a true entrepreneur is going to be able to just take that money and do something else and do something else and do something else, right? And I feel like that's part of the whole spirit of being an entrepreneur, right? Like, I've had several businesses. I've sold and I've launched and sold, I don't know how many, but I love the startup process. That's like my favorite thing to do. And that used to be my focus, is I just wanted to start it and then give it to someone else,
Yeah.
I like that whole process of it. And so actually holding on to these businesses as long as I have is kind of shocking to me, but I know it's because of the creative side. It's my stress reliever.
Yeah, I love that you talk about that. And this is so relatable. And maybe, I've been thinking too, with my current business, I've been part of this longer than any business I've ever been a part of. But part of the reason is because I can create within it, under this umbrella. I can express who I am in so many different ways. I can tie the personal development in. I can create new products. I think it fosters everything that a person like me, multi-passionate, is really what it comes down to, a multi-potentialite, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever related to that term, multi-passionate or multi-potentialite?
Oh, absolutely. But of course, a lot of people don't relate to it, so they just think you're nuts, right?
I am the crazy guy in a lot of my circles. Yeah.
Yeah, you and me. It's like we're the two halves making a whole, because we're the same like that. Where other people are like, "What are you doing now?" Some people are inspired by it, and some people are just don't even want to talk to you.
Yeah, they think we're living this fantasy life, and in a lot of ways, I think it is. It's exhausting at the same time too. Don't get me wrong, right?
Sure.
So, like, I can't even watch Shark Tank anymore because I can't handle one more idea.
No.
Like, if I watch Shark Tank at night, my wheels are spinning all night long, just thinking of different ideas or how I could do something better than what I may have seen there.
Right.
But there's so much in our society where we're kind of ingrained to be the specialist. No, you got to go to school, get this degree, and then you're going to spend 30 years doing just that. And that was literally like hell on earth for me.
Right.
And I think we can inspire other people.
Watch.
Yeah, exactly. Which they don't even do anymore.
Right. Yep.
Jen, I want to circle back because I love where this conversation went. And you have done amazing things with the craft business that I think would be on other people's dream boards right now. And that is getting those wholesale accounts, going international, tapping into so many different shows. And we can either talk about the drinks and crafts, or we can go into Dandy Like Candy with that international piece in there. But I want to just specifically talk about how it ties into your schedule, because you talk a little bit about how you balance your job, how you create your product. But at what point and how do you reach out and start building these relationships that get your foot in the door, or your product in the door?
Yeah. So like locally here in Arizona, there are a lot of stores that popped up that do have multiple makers in there. And a lot of them will either rent you a little space in the store, or they'll do consignment. They'll sell it for you and then just keep a percentage. Which that's how I started off with my wholesale, and learned very quickly that renting, that's how they make their rent, is by renting all these spaces to unsuspecting little artists, that think, oh, I can make that $100 back, when you're all of a sudden not making anything. You're just making enough to pay the rent, because no one's pushing your product like you do. And that's
good point.
Something I learned at doing art shows, because I watched other artists just sitting there with their face in a book, not talking to people and not making any money. And I sit there, I stand, I smile, I say hello to everybody. I'm like, oh, have you seen these? Oh, you want to see something funny? I talk to everybody, and I can make thousands of dollars in 4 hours, and they made zero, not even enough to cover their booth fee. But it's all in your approach. So when you have stuff in a store, nobody's sitting there trying to sell it for you, right? They're like, oh, if it comes to the register, cool. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, that doesn't really work for me. And the same with the consignment. So I have stuff on consignment for months, and then all of a sudden I'll get a check in the mail for $16. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it's been there for 3 months. I got nobody's buying this. How can I sell thousands of these, but your store can only sell 2 or 1? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't. So for me personally, I decided that is not beneficial for my business. So I do not do renting a space in a store or consignment anymore. But that is how a lot of people want to play it in the state of Arizona. So what I did is I just started contacting stores. I follow stores on Instagram when I like what they sell. I feel like maybe my stuff's a good fit because I have that sassy vibe to it. I said, oh, that seems like a neat store. I researched the store. I will never walk into a store without an appointment. I don't think that that's professional. I would never want someone to do that to me. So that's one thing. But I will research the store. I will look at their website, their information. Is there information about how to become a wholesaler? Things like that. And so then I will send an email and, give them a couple pictures of my product, maybe a line sheet, say, I love your store. I would love to be a part of it. I think it's a great fit. And, here's my wholesale price and love to work with you and go from there, and I think the key to that too is to schedule follow-up. I'm sure they get millions of emails, so there's also these websites that are for makers or companies to connect with stores and buyers. And so I looked into that and I got accepted. Well, it was funny because I just launched my business and I'm like, okay, I hurried up. I created my products. I made my website and my logo, everything in 2 weeks just so I could get on this wholesale site.
Wow.
Yeah, I hustled and I got accepted right away. And it was a game changer for me and taught me a lot about how to wholesale because basically you create your own page on their website. It has all your products. You set your minimums. You set your reorder minimums, and they do keep a percentage, which is a little bit high at the beginning, but if people reorder, it reduces. So I thought, well, it would be impossible for me to reach these people on my own. And if you had sales reps, you're going to pay them a commission. So it's the same thing,
Right.
And if I want to be serious and not play small, right? Like in my past, this is what I got to do. Right. Yep. So that's what I did. And that actually has brought me at least 100 of my wholesale accounts has been through there. And so it really worked out for me. I mean, it's not, I'm not making all the money in the world, but, baby steps, right? You got to start somewhere. And it's been good. And then the other thing I tried to do last year before the world got shut down was I did my very first ever trade show. And wow, I thought, I've been doing art shows for 10, 11 years. This shouldn't be too hard, right? It was
it
quite an experience. It was, yeah, I did a lot of research beforehand on how to really do a trade show. And it was a completely different world. It was 4 days and I went to Dallas for the World Trade Center. I was on the floor of all up-and-coming companies and artists. They had actually invited me to come, which I thought was amazing. Like, how did they find me? So, and it was like the total home and gift show. And it's like they're expecting, people from 30-something countries, like 20,000 buyers. I'm like, this is what I have to do. I got to try, right? So packed up my stuff, got all my all my goodies made, and I went there and I set up and I smiled and I tried to talk to everyone the way I do at an art show, and everyone ignored me. I was there for 3 days before I made a sale. I literally was going to cry. I've never, all this time trying to teach the other artists how to talk to everyone and smile and, that's how you sell. It wasn't working for me for the first time in my little career here of selling. So I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? And I really wanted to just give up, but you can't. You got to keep going. And so finally, on the third day, I think it was the end of the day, I got my first sale, and I was like, whoa. So finally I got somewhere. And then what come to find out, it was a lot of people just look around, because it's literally 13 floors, I think, of stuff, of stores, it's a lot for them to consume. Wow. So these people are, coming from all over the world to see what they want to buy for their stores. And so, yeah, by the last day, I was happy. I went home with some orders. I felt like, okay, I did it, It was an experience, something you got to try. But the expense of it all and the stress of it all, I don't know if I'll do another one again, but after that, I mean, I did make solid contacts, and they still order from me every month or so. And that's the whole point of it, right? So,
those long-term relationships, I suppose.
Exactly. And just like any other business, you have to build those relationships. So,
huge. Yeah. Well, and I love the way you lined this up, because it really does come down to relationships. Number one, I love that you research the stores first. You find out that you're a good fit ahead of time. You already know that you're a good fit. Your product's a good fit for their store. And then you compliment their store when you reach out.
Right.
Like, hey, I love what you're doing here. I think I'd be a good fit. And here's some samples. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think that part gets skipped, where when you reach out, a lot of artists, like in my community, it happens to be notaries, but we throw up all about us in the email, and we forget that there's another person that wants to hear some good stuff about them too, about their dream and about what they're putting out in the world. So I love that you address that a little bit. And on the trade show front, I mean, this was your first one. Mm-hmm. I know you're questioning whether you'll have another one or not, but do you think, are there people that do thrive in this and make it a point to go to those every year? Is there a follow-up? Are the contacts that good?
Yeah. So there are businesses, and a lot of them are way bigger businesses than mine, and they have big setups, and it's big to do. And they do, the big shows, trade shows. That's all they do. So I thought, well, maybe I could pivot my business, and instead of me hustling, because, by this time of the year, from October through March, I've already done 30 something shows. I do every weekend, and I'm exhausted, and I'm waiting for summer so that I can take a break. I thought, well, if I could pivot and I can really push Dandy Like Candy into the wholesale market more, and I just do, say, 2 trade shows a year, I can handle that. If that's successful for me and I can really push my business, then why not? Let's try it. I mean, basically, it's all the money I would have paid in fees for a whole season is going into literally 4-day event, So I was like, well, I'm going to just do it. These people invited me. I don't know how they found me, but I feel blessed. And, there's a reason this opportunity has been presented to me, and I'm just going to go for it. And so I did, and then, of course, the world has changed with COVID. And so a lot of those trade shows stopped being in person, and they are online shows right now. So I don't know what that looks like going forward,
Right.
I just got a little taste of it. And it was right before this was last January, right before things were happening. I don't know,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you brought up something else too that'll help us close out here, because I think this is super important. You talked on how by the end of your season, which is normally about this time of year in March, mm-hmm. In at least Phoenix, you're just completely exhausted because mm-hmm. you have gone to so many shows. Now, and then on top of the going to shows, you still have to create your inventory. You're busy. So what that says to me is that this is not always rainbows and unicorns, right? So there's some hard work, some labor, and some exhaustion that goes into it. What keeps you going? What's your big why? Why do you go through this?
Well, a lot of that is true. It's not rainbows and unicorns. It's hard. It's hard work. And as I get older, I'm like, wow, this is like hard physical labor. When you think about it, it's, you think you go into a store, that store's there all the time. As an artist, you are building that store every morning, 2 hours before it opens. And then you're open all day long, and then you're tearing down for 2 hours and going home and dying, right? Because you're exhausted. It's not an easy life. But at the same time, my why that keeps me going is there's people in my life that I need to take care of. I feel responsible for, I take care of, and also I enjoy helping people. So those are the things that drive me. And what makes, my why is very personal, so I won't say it to the letter, but it's always to serve others, right?
Yeah.
I'm a servant to others. And so this helps me be philanthropic, help other people. I told you I've kind of been trying to work on creating a program to help artists sell their work. Like that's another part of it. Like anything I can do to help others and serve is, I feel like that's what makes me feel good and feel whole, and is the gist of my why. So
I love that, and that's probably another reason why I think you and I are so attracted to each other, and we've stayed in each other's lives for so long, is that servant leadership that you demonstrate. Not only are you're using your job, your business, your side hustles, your creativity as a vehicle to serve others. And I love being in the peripheral of that. Jen, your energy is amazing. I love what you've created. Congratulations on being international with Dandy Like Candy. I can't wait to see where you go, especially with this program or this course that you're creating to help other artists sell or monetize their work too, so they can live their dream lives. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I love you like a brother from another mother, so we definitely have that bond, that entrepreneurial bond. So I love seeing what you're doing, and thanks for including me in your journey.
Yeah. Totally my pleasure. And thanks for always being willing to say yes. Yes to crazy stuff like being on a new podcast. I really appreciate that. And for those of you that are listening and you're interested in checking out Dandy Like Candy, Jen has graciously offered us 20% off your order. Plus, you can follow her on Instagram. I have the links and the coupon code inside the VIP room at SideHustleLounge.com. Just look for Jen Enck and this podcast episode, and we'll hook you up. Jen, once again, thank you so much. And to all of you who are listening, thank you for being here.